Hello, and welcome to the Feral Housewife podcast. I'm your host, Sydney. I can be found on Ravelry as Sydney Knits or at theferalhousewife@gmail.com. I'm recording both audio for the audio podcast and video. So if you're listening to this on audio and would like to watch the video, it's available on YouTube, and the channel is The Feral Housewife. You'll see the podcast logo. So let's get right into it. I put a chair in the yarn area, the sewing yarn room, and it's like a dumpster diving chair, so nothing fancy. Behind me in Cascade Eco Wool is a hemlock ring blanket. And those of you who have come over from the old podcast, Naked Knits podcast from over a decade ago, will remember that was one of the first projects we talked about on there. And it's one of the patterns that really launched Gerald Flood, Brooklyn Tweed. It's actually a pattern, a doily pattern that he supersized. So I did it in Eco Wool. I cannot recall whether it was 1 or 2 skeins at the top of my head. I don't even, to be honest, I'm awful. I don't even know if you can go back and listen to the old audio. I can tell you that back then my Ravelry notes are pretty spot on. And then what I'm wearing today, although I'm not entirely thrilled with the fit, it's by, I believe, Sweater Babe. Yeah, I think it's a 3/4 length. It's more of a wrap, and I'm not going to stand up because I'll go out of frame, but there is a lace panel in the back as well. So it's laced down the front, laced down the back. It's in a gray. This yarn is a cable plied yarn. So it has like it's like almost like a tube, and there's alpaca in it. So it's very drapey. This little shawl pin, I want to say, is by Romney. She's on Ravelry as well. So let's get into it. Today I I'll talk a little bit about the craftiness this week. I'll talk a little bit about what I've noticed and the changes in Ravelry, having been off of it and then back on it. Just the usual stuff. So if you're here for the knitting, I have no finished objects to show you whatsoever. It's not that I haven't been knitting. I have, but I just haven't finished anything. So you'll recall last week I was talking about a kit that I had picked up at New York Sheep and Wool this year, and it was, I want to block out the information. It is from Tidal yarns, and the only way this pattern is available is through a kit. So I looked at the kit online and determined that since we were going to be there this year, assuming if they didn't cancel 2021, that I would go ahead and see whether or not I wanted the kit. It's called Tidal Yarns Hilow Sweater, and the pattern is by Deborah Parcella, but when I was looking on Ravelry, I can't find this pattern. I can find like a comfort cardigan or comfort pullover that looks really similar. It has a contrasting pocket, and the pocket is stitched on after, so you're not using waste yarn and having an interior pocket. It's a little exterior pocket. But it's let's see, the yarn they call for is their fingering weight yarn. So I think last week I said it was DK or worsted, so obviously I can't be trusted. Let me pull the contrasting color. The contrasting color I chose, the new light I put in here seems to be pretty accurate with color as what I'm seeing on the screen. So if you're listening, the color is like a turquoise and the yarn is natural gray. So as the yarn is as it came off the sheep, it's that color, which is something that have always been really passionate about. So what I've done is it's knit from the top down. It's a top down raglan construction. It has you knitting the seed stitch collar, picking up and knitting after. I opted, when I was ready to join in my second ball of yarn, what I did is I picked up and knit the collar then. I really wanted to utilize as much of the yarn as possible. So it's most likely, the way I'm seeing me do this, so let me see. I have 2 more skeins of the gray. So when I knit the body and run out of the yarn that I'm currently on, what I'll do is pick up and knit the sleeves to the desired length. And then this way I'll know whatever yarn I have left is the body, and I'm not gonna run out of yarn, and I can potentially add length. Sometimes I've added length to sleeves if that's something that's important. I knit the vodka gimlet sweater in, and if you know me well, you know the vodka gimlet took me a flippin' eternity to knit, just because it was straight stockinette in knit flat, and that bores the crap out of me. But at any rate, I had knit it in Madeline Tosh. This colorway it's Madeline Tosh Vintage. I can't see. Opardra, I think. Which is superwash, and I just noticed that today. I've never paid attention. I usually hand wash most of my knits except for the socks, which has come to bite me in the ass because I have a pair of socks that I felted this week, and that I appreciate the natural sock thing. I'm just not a responsible adult. I really, it ends up in the laundry no matter what happens. It does. And I don't know. I'm not going to make excuses. I will join the natural sock knit along, because I love the way they feel. My feet are never cold. And, what were we with wind chill the other day? We were -15. So, and I was fine. Tonight or tomorrow night, we get down to -9, and that's not wind chill. That's just the temperature. So, like, I can definitely appreciate the natural sock. I don't know. I'm looking at my stash now against the wall out of frame if you're watching, but I'm looking at my stash and trying to decide what I would go into that. But at any rate, so I did add length of sleeves on my gimlet, and I added a ton of length. Like, it covers down past my hips on that. And so, and it just occurred to me, it's in the closet. I should pull it out so it's in my rotation. And I still have 2 full skeins of Madeline Tosh left over. So Madeline Tosh changed ownership. I don't know if they had a period of time they went out of business, but I know they changed ownership. And this was the previous, but I believe the base they're dyeing on is the same. Any rate, so I will probably pick up and knit I was reading what was in my little Tidal yarn kit. I will probably pick up and knit the sleeves, and then this way I know the body is taken care of. I may even knit the pocket. Yes, I will pick up and knit the sleeves, and I will knit the pocket before I finish the rest of the body. So I would have gotten a lot further, but I got distracted by casting on another project, and my needle came totally undone from the base on these circulars. So this is Lantern Moon. Lantern Moon had gone out of business, and then they're opening under new ownership. I know nothing of the new needles. I knew a lot about the old ones. I love the ebony needles, and I think I mentioned that before. I'm considering getting a Chigu set, interchangeable set for myself. I'm going to go to my LYS and try the ones she has there. She has the shorties, which I don't know with my nerve damage in my hand if I want to go that route or not, but we'll see. So I just put a little glue to glue this back in. It didn't break in a split. It pulled out of the casing. And I must twist my knitting when I work on projects, because when I'm knitting on either the Knit Picks needles or my interchangeable Lantern Moons, both of which are ones that screw on, I will unscrew a needle, regardless of how tightly I seem to get that on there. So it must be something I'm doing with my hands. I guess one way for me to notice that would be when I knit color work, I hold my yarn in both hands. I typically hold my yarn in my left hand, but I tension it over my pinky and over my index finger. So I'm not a thrower per se. And then I hold the yarn on the other side, the contrasting color in the color work, with my left hand. And I'll have to see if on the needles that are interchangeable, whether I'm pulling them off there, because then I would know which hand was twisting it, so to speak. But the reason I got distracted, so I have to knit 9.5 inches from the armhole down, and this is maybe 6 3/4, 7 if you're being generous. So I have a while to go. I just glued this back on this morning with I couldn't find any crazy glue, so I used E6000, which is like a hella good glue. It's a glue that when I was, if you're hearing clanking, I'm moving something. It was a glue that when I was working a lot in pottery and making magnets, I would glue the magnets to the back of the pottery pieces. So at any rate, what I had gotten distracted by, well, there were two things. One I actually cast on, and one I said, well, let me get this cast on done first. Let me put these needles away. I had been, before I put them away, I had tried Knitter's Pride years ago and then retried the 16 inchers. I don't have a lot of 16-inch needles in my needle stash, so I figured I'd give them a try. So what I cast on was a vest. This is a pattern by Nice One. I was looking at a pattern, not a pattern by Nice One. I'm sorry, I just kicked the camera. But the pattern is called Nice One, and I don't even think there's any Ravelry projects for it. The pattern I had wanted to knit, or originally had in my queue, I couldn't quite figure out how to buy their pattern very easily. So it's a basic bottom up vest that is knit 1 by 1 rib, knit in the round to the armholes, and then knit flat and seamed at the shoulders, and then picked up, I believe, both the little arm ribbing area here on the vest, and then the collar, so your armhole and the collar is picked up and knit in ribbing. So I decided it would be a really quick, in theory, if I knit on it, a really quick knit. And I was deciding that I wanted to enjoy using some hand spun. So this was spun is a merino silk roving in a light cranberry color, and I'll show it in a skein, that I spun on the Shocked Matchless, which is my preferred wheel. I have a Luette as well. I was actually considering selling the Luette recently. It's a 3-ply. I had a look because I plied it quite some time ago. It smells delicious. And I thought I want to enjoy that. It feels so soft and buttery. I only have 800 yards, which for me is not a sweater. I don't think it even was a sweater 20 years ago, to be honest. Before the kids, it wouldn't have made a sweater, let's be real. And if 800 yards can make a sweater for you, kudos to you, my friend. But it does not make me a sweater. So I wasn't sure what to do with it. And I have used hand spun for three of my children's sweaters. So it's not as though I'm opposed to it. It's just, this one was kind of special. I bought this fiber on my first trip to Rhinebeck, and I ended up buying more of it because I just didn't want like a little small project. I wanted something bigger. So I guess we can figure this inch could have been an inch on the Tidal yarn Hilow pullover, but I ended up casting on something new. So we'll see. I'm probably going to knit on this today, later, if I don't rug braid. I have a sewing project that's kind of distracting me, so we'll see what we end up with. But I'll set that down for now. And then I think last time I spoke of the little wool fairies that I had made using roving, so I thought I would show one if you're on the video. And this was a great way for me to use up some roving that I didn't quite want to finish spinning. It wasn't, I talked about and showed a yarn that I spun last week. I was just looking up at it. It's too far for me to reach it, but it was a merino silk by roving dyed by Blue Moon Fibers, and I love it, but I wanted to still honor it and not like use it as stuffing in a toy or what have you. So I made these cute little wool fairies, and I'm going to send those to the gallery as soon as I get my act together. So then I cast on a sock, and when I say I cast it on, I literally went to my LYS. I decided I wanted to do it magic loop, which is the best way for me to have a sock just floating. If I'm committed to the sock, I'll put it on DPNs, but I will cast on the sock and leave it about, and it'll take forever. So I had not knit the Zabberball that has been in my stash a very long time, and I mean, like, I had 2 kids or 3 when I bought it. I think 2. So, you know, I wanted to cast it on. I'm a loose knitter. I didn't have a needle size that I could use for magic loop, and I figured I'll just get it at the LYS and support them. I literally cast it on and knit 2 rows of the ribbing just to establish the magic loop, so when I put it in the bag it wasn't all wonky, and I've knit nothing else on it. It is there for if the project I'm currently working on and I want to go for a car ride or something and want to take something with me, and if the project I'm on is either too big, cumbersome, or at a part where I can't just knit in the car. I can knit in the car if I'm not paying attention to what I'm knitting. If I'm at all have to make any sort of knitting decision in the car, I'm gonna feel motion sick, so it's just not worth it to me. So at any rate, the project that was distracting me is Wintersole by Jennifer Steingrass, here as a picture. And what I wanted to knit it with is I had gone to White River Junction's open house. I'm sorry if everybody hears the paper rustling. Oh no, the paper, something has fallen behind the chair. It might be there forever. Any rate, White River Junction had a mill something, local wool and to the area. And I've gotten a beautiful chocolatey brown. It's a 2-ply. They say it's a DK, and my fingers are saying worsted, but you know, I bet they did the weight and wraps per inch or something more mathematical than my fingers say. I'm going to, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to gauge swatch. I'm going to cast on and see what it turns out to be. So I think if I'm not mistaken, my plan was to knit one size up because I believe the gauge on this is going to be a little less. I might gauge swatch, who knows. But when I was buying the yarn, this yarn, I did not know what I was buying it for. And I bought 4 skeins of the chocolatey brown. And like what? Again, like I don't know who I think I'm buying sweater quantities for because it's not for me. But I also bought, I can't show the natural cream, but these are undyed. So this is like as the animal was or the animals were, and it made this. I got a taupey brown or taupey gray, and the video color is showing it as being like very silvery gray, and I believe that there's Corriedale in this. That's my guess anyway. There's a long wool in it to give it a little more luster. But at any rate, the project notes that I'm seeing on Ravelry for it, people are saying that they're knitting it fairly quickly, and so that kind of excites me. So I'm hoping, like in my mind, I'm thinking I knit on the vest and get that high, I guess, of a finished object, and then cast on this. And then because my idea is that the high-low would be a good spring sweater to have, because it's a lighter weight yarn and could be used that way, whereas this one is definitely a winter sole, you know, like it says it, that maybe I should consider it for like, let's get it done. And at any rate, so that concludes my knitting works in progress. So what have I been doing? Well, I went to my rug braiding class, and I finished the small mismatched rug. So it was probably 2 feet by 18 inches, like entryway area space. And I learned how to finish off the edge and kind of weave that in and sew it in. And I spoke with the woman hosting the class who has 20 plus years of rug braiding experience to fall back on about what the best bet for me to do for the super large one that I want to put under my dining table. The floors in the dining room are unfinished currently. The floors, basically the center of the house, the floors on the dining room, the room above the dining room, the foyer and up, and the landing and the stairwell is undone. We have not done anything there. And if you watched the short clip before, the dining room area is a mess. So I'm not really in a rush to get the rug for under the dining table done, but I mean, like when it's done, I'm gonna want it on the floor, but I don't know if I'm having them resurfaced or refinished professionally, or if it's something that I'm gonna be doing and just painting them. I'm not opposed to either. I just haven't decided. And it doesn't make sense to do the floors until the 3,000 layers of wallpaper are taken down. Any rate, I had started the carpet, and I think the class intended the carpet to be like 3 foot by 2 foot. And I kept going, and I was already at 4 by 3, I think. Yeah, I think I was at 4 by 3. So I was already at the 4 by 3 point, and I hadn't ended it because I didn't know how at that point. And when I was starting the braiding for the second rug, I was seeing such a familiar color family that I was like, let me ask the instructor what their opinion was about me making the one rug 2, or the 2 rugs 1. There we go. That's better. The 2 rugs into 1. And her feeling was that since I had already, the color families were so similar, that it would be a natural progression. So that's where I am. I recorded some video footage of the lacing process, and I'll probably keep recording a little bit as I try to select the next ring of color. I know there's some rug braiders that map that out from the very beginning of what they're going to do. And I just don't think I'm that type of person. But I did find something very cool on Etsy. So to do the rugs, you have to braid, well, you don't have to, but they fold in, the strips of wool are folded in to each other. And they still sell a modern a folding thing, doohickey. The old brand was called Braid. I don't know what they call the new one off the top of my head, and there's something engraved on it, but I can't see it. But the modern ones are made to only fit in 1.25 inches, I think, and I cut my strips beefier than that, so that wasn't going to work for me per se. So what I found was vintage ones, and these have a little doohickey, for lack of a better term, that you can slide up and down so that you can stop it, so that it's not slipping down the strip of wool while you're trying to braid it, and it creates the fold. So if you've sewn and ever made your own bias tape using a bias tape maker, I think I had to do, the only experience I have with that is a quilt, but I had bias tape. And in fact, when I was first folding these, the instructor said, oh, you can iron them ahead of time, do the little tri-fold. And it was just very fiddly for me. I didn't think it would, it didn't speed up my braiding any significantly for me to waste the time standing with the iron. And someone else at the class said, in response to me saying I didn't like to iron them, that they find it so peaceful and zen to iron, and didn't know what was wrong with me, basically. I don't know. Standing in the kitchen and ironing strips of wool is not the hobby I want. So it was more expeditious of me to either braid with my hands and using little clips, which was working quite well. And I just put these new variable braid aids on today, and I think I really like it. So I'm lacing today, and I'll post a finished picture in the podcast of where I get to when I'm not finished, but where I get to. My goal is before the next braiding meeting is to have it, I think I said 5 by 6 foot was my goal. So we'll see if I make that goal or not and how distracted I get by knitting. So also this week, I'm taking 2 of the fleeces that I got at Rhinebeck to be processed into roving. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do pencil roving or just roving. I had toyed with the idea of processing the fleeces myself, and I have done that in the past. But the hobbies I enjoy more are not in the processing of the wool, that portion. While I do enjoy hand carding and making the roll-odds, I don't have a drum carder, not that you'd need one, but I enjoy spinning it. So, you know, why not just keep up with that? Excuse me. So the brown merino roving that I talked about last time and showed on the video, I have started spinning that, and I have 1 bobbin on the Shocked Matchless full, and just started the second one yesterday evening. I am going to ply that as I go, and what I do is after I ply and I take it off the wheel, I wind it through the yardage machine I have. I'll show it because it probably has a special name. This is vintage, and what it is you thread the yarn or whatever your lacing thread or whatever it is that you need to know the yardage of. But typically for me, it's yarn. I thread it through and around, and there's a dial on the analog dial on the top. And as it spins through, it, I'm just clearing it now. It calculates the yardage. It'd be really funny though, because there's no markings on this. It's made in the US, so it's going to be yardage. I was going to say it would be really funny if this was meters, and all these years I've been thinking that I know my yardage. So anyway, so we did that. I cast on a project in the Nutidin, and I realized it is a big learning curve to knit with the Nutidin, in my opinion. I had it split twice on me. Not a big deal to put it back together. But what is a big deal is when one realizes that the cabled mittens they were intending to knit with the Nutidin would not be a great project for the Nutidin, because it doesn't like to be pulled and stretched in that regard. So this knitter in particular had trouble frogging the Nutidin. It just kind of went with it. And so what I did is, what little bit I had cast on to knit, I put aside, so that whatever I decide to knit, if I really need those end little bits, I can really sit there and tink it out. But if I don't, I'm not like shredding this unspun fiber. Now, I had knit with Plotolope years ago. I don't recall it being as fiddly as the Nutidin. It's not that I don't like it. It feels like liquid butter being knit through your hands. So it's a lovely feeling. I don't know that it's, I know people used it for this cabled, the Moreland, I think it's Moreland mittens, but I can't see with and I'm a loose knitter, that how I'm gonna cross those stitches in a yarn that doesn't have a hell of a lot of give to it. So we'll see. This other yarn is staring at me right now because I know I talked about it last week about wanting to make the sweater with it, and it's wondering why I turned my back on it and knit. But the hand spun was calling me, and the Wintersole, I didn't want to do the Wintersole in this unspun Norwegian yarn. Something else has to be in it. I don't know. We'll see. And I may strand a mohair with it on the Norwegian unspun. We'll see. It's the this is the one of the contrasting colors, but and it has that fleck of what you call it, shiny to it. Yeah, it doesn't pull as bad as the Nutidin. Now, I say that about the Nutidin, but the ball I was knitting from was made into a center pull ball. This is direct from the cake. I'm wondering if I should, because I have two of these, three. I'm wondering if I should knit from the cake of them and just pull from two cakes, and maybe the winding of the ball of the two of them together impacted that. I don't know. If you have input, comment please. But at any rate, so that's where we are this week. If you are listening and enjoying, please like, share, subscribe. And I like seeing that the downloads have increased and the views have increased, likewise on the video portion. But it's always encouraging, and especially after such a long hiatus. So I can be found on Ravelry as Sydney Knits, or at the Feral Housewife podcast at gmail.com. And you can comment on the YouTube video or in the thread of the group on Ravelry. All right, have a great week, everyone. Bye.